Now at 11, the heartache and the horror.
But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is.
A nation in mourning.
This was an act of terror and an act of hate.
After the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history.
Tonight, the victims, the suspected ISIS sympathizer, and how the Richmond community is uniting to honor the lives lost after the terror in Orlando. Moments ago, FBI officials arrived at the suspected gunman's home to collect evidence.
And good evening. We're on your side tonight with comprehensive team coverage of this deadly attack on a nightclub in Orlando, Florida.
We have multiple crews standing by locally, but we need to begin with Jay Gray with the latest.
An outpouring of support tonight. A stunned nation searching for strength and answers. Less than 24 hours after the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Just after 2 a.m., the clash of gunfire rose above the dance music inside the popular gay nightclub Pulse.
Oh my God, people are getting shot, dude.
At least 50 were killed, 53 or more injured. The deadliest shooting in U.S. history.
A ballistic vest here for any of our individuals that are entering the red zone.
As police moved in, the wounded were moved to area hospital, while dozens still inside the club were held hostage. The standoff continuing for 3 hours before a SWAT team stormed in, killing the suspect during a firefight.
In staging, we now have our large MCI unit, 250 patients.
As the magnitude of the attack started to sink in, desperate friends and families searched for loved ones.
But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is. If he's been shot, if he's dead, no one knows.
We do know more now about the alleged triggerman, 29-year-old Omar Mateen, born in New York. He moved to Florida with his family more than 10 years ago. The FBI first learned about Mateen 4 years ago when co-workers alerted agents about comments he made supporting violent extremism. A year later, he was questioned about a passing relationship with a man who became a suicide bomber in Syria. Since then, agents say he showed no signs of preparing for a terror attack. Police say Mateen called 911 just before the attack, pledging his allegiance to ISIS and talking briefly about the Boston Marathon bombing. But his father tells NBC News the killing spree may have been fueled by his anger over something he saw a few months ago in Miami, saying, quote, he saw two men kissing each other and he got very angry. Omar was very upset. Maybe that's why he went after a gay club. As investigators continue to search for that reason, this community and the country now search for comfort.
Mateen's ex-wife spoke out tonight, calling him, quote, violent and bipolar, and saying that at times during their brief marriage, he held her hostage, not allowing her to speak with her family. Jay Gray, NBC News, Orlando.
Jay, thanks. And tonight, more than 100 students gathered at VCU to remember the Orlando victims. We saw scores of students lighting candles in the Compass and a tearful and somber memorial.
NBC 12's Stephanie Robusto is there live for us now. And Stephanie, what are you seeing and what are you hearing from the crowd here tonight?
Well, first of all, the vigil is still underway behind me. We're just simply trying to give them that respectful distance so that they can continue their night of reflection. One theme we keep hearing here tonight is that no one should have to be here. You shouldn't have to grieve. You shouldn't have to cry, because this type of violence simply shouldn't happen. That is one message from those holding the vigil here, honoring those who lost their lives in the Orlando shooting. And they're asking for peace to be with the city and throughout the LGBT community. Now, if you don't understand why this affects so many of them here in Richmond, they explain the concern of feeling this terror could happen to them at any time, anywhere. And they explain a gay nightclub is a sort of sanctuary for them to feel free and to be themselves. So they're using this vigil as a reminder to support one another, not only in the LGBT community, but throughout Richmond and the Commonwealth as well. And it is a reminder that no matter your race, your religion, your identity, your way of life, that you need to support one another. One speaker urges everyone to look out for one another and to love one another, and to remember the actions of the shooter in Orlando are not representative of all Muslims. They want to keep this conversation on the victims while also showing support for those in the LGBT community. And those here tonight recall the moment they heard the news of the shooting this morning.
In any time of trouble and any time like this, the best thing to do is just band together with a big, strong group of like-minded individuals and, you know, work together, be together. So it's just really all about together. Like, that's why we're here, is just to be with people like us who need, you know, other people to be around.
Now, in the coming days, there will be similar nights of reflection throughout Richmond. On Tuesday, Diversity Richmond will hold a vigil starting at 7. At the same time, on Wednesday evening, the MCC Richmond Faith Community will hold a vigil as well for you to attend. On your side in Richmond, Stephanie Robusto, NBC 12 News.
Stephanie, thanks. Well, you've likely seen this stunning photo. Orlando police say an officer's Kevlar helmet likely saved his life. He was shot in the head by the gunman. A Richmond police source says there's no evidence of any threat to our city. But tonight, we're delving into how officers respond to mass shootings and the lasting effects on the men and women who fight so hard to keep us safe.
It's a very complicated scene to roll up on, especially when you have mass casualties like this. Not only do you have the casualties, but you have just as many, if not more, people injured.
Dana Shroud of Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police says the response to a complicated scene like the one in Orlando Sunday comes down to two key elements.
First of all, protect the innocent. Secondly, eliminate the threat.
Virginia police had to follow this simple yet complex formula in 2007 during what was the deadliest mass shooting in the United States before Orlando's at Virginia Tech.
So your training kicks in, your adrenaline kicks in as a responder to try to make all those things happen and set your emotions aside so you can do your job.
When the threat is eliminated and the scene calmed, the situation is far from over, and that's when emotions kick in.
The investigation takes weeks to complete. Those folks are still on the job for several weeks, and the amount of trauma and stress that they experience over that time is something that we as a law enforcement community can't ignore.
Sometimes so overwhelming, Shroud says some officers never recover.
We occasionally often lose officers who decide 6 months to a year later, you know, I don't think I can do this anymore.
For those that stay, Shroud says with grief comes learning.
Every time we have an incident like this, we take a look at, you know, what were the indicators? How could we have prevented this?
Our Richmond police source says the department is always assessing and staying on top of any situation.
And just in here tonight, Richmond Mayor Dwight Jones is joining many other Virginia officials in offering thoughts and prayers to the people in Orlando. Jones says, quote, "Our hearts go out to everyone affected by this recent tragedy." He goes on to ask, how many deaths will it take for us to see change ushered in concealing gun control? Now again, while police sources tell us there is no evidence of a local threat, it's clear this will be on the minds of many who both work and frequent Richmond's LGBT bars and clubs. Nicole Chadwick is monitoring how local establishments are processing this. She's in the First Alert Center.
Well, Richmond is home to many LGBT nightclubs and bars, so this certainly hits close to home. Babes and Barcode, just two establishments showing support for the victims of the Pulse attack on Facebook. And I actually went to Godfrey's as performers prepared to take the stage with the terror attack fresh on their minds. Take a look.
Even this morning, getting ready for our brunch show, I'm in the back of my mind concerned, like, oh my God, like what if there's like a series of these things that's happening? What if, you know, and it really is heart-wrenching.
Drag performer Alvion Davenport couldn't help but be scared to go to work Sunday.
As a gay male and as a female impersonator, even on top of that, it's really a struggle to feel safe and feel comfortable with all the hatred and things in the world.
He has friends that work at Pulse Orlando. All of them survived the rampage where 50 people were killed Saturday night.
We have different parts of the building that you should probably run to for cover.
And Sunday, Davenport went over security protocols as he prepared to perform.
Godfrey's, I do feel safe here, and I want everyone to know that we pride ourselves on being fair and safe and fun, but it just really boggles your mind and you start to think about stuff like that, even when you think you have the best security system.
We can tell when things are escalating.
Godfrey's manager, Jack Kuntz, says they have 2 sheriff's deputies at the door on busy nights, and he knows as the night goes on, you have to be careful.
You just have to be really aware of what's going on around you at all times.
But customer Shelley Carwile says as upsetting as it is, she's not surprised.
It's very scary, but it's almost like it's happening so much that it makes you kind of numb.
She came to Godfrey's for brunch Sunday and agrees with Davenport that this was an attack on the LGBT community.
It's just sad that some people are so full of hate, you know, and just can do things like that. I mean, just let everybody be who they are, you know?
And even though the world is more accepting, Davenport thinks there's still a long way to go.
It's just so devastating, again, and heartbreaking to know that we just tried to live a normal life as everyone else, and we're sought after to be hurt or to be harmed just because of the sheer reasons.
One of the managers tells me they're confident in their security measures, but they will keep them in mind as they head into another busy week. On your side in the First Alert Center, Nicole Chadwick, NBC 12.
We also reached out to Diversity Richmond's executive director, Bill Harrison, who calls the targeting of the LGBT community, or any community, hard to digest. He says he admires the people who put themselves in the line of danger to help others get out of Club Pulse. He's now calling for all Americans to unite in light of this tragedy.
The LGBT community across the country is a very strong community, and we have certainly faced challenges and tragedy before. And we will unite, we will not forget, we will work hard to educate, we will work hard to help heal.
We touched on the gunman's past earlier in the broadcast, but now we're delving a little deeper. While friends of Omar Mateen described him as a pretty normal guy, his ex-wife tells a far more terrifying story. She describes a fiery temper and abuse from a man who she says trained with guns and at one point even wanted to be a police officer.
Instability, emotional instability, sickness, mentally, he was mentally unstable and mentally ill. My family literally rescued me. The night that they were there, they had to pull me out of his arms and by an emergency flight.
The ATF has traced the weapons used in the attack and says Mateen bought the guns legally. He was already on the FBI's radar, suspected of being an ISIS sympathizer.
Even with blood still in the nightclub, fallout found its way to the campaign trail. Hillary Clinton said in a statement, quote, "Weapons of war have no place on our streets." Donald Trump tweeted, quote, "Appreciate the congrats for being right on radical Islamic terrorism. I don't want congrats. I want toughness and vigilance." Both Clinton and Trump canceled campaign appearances tomorrow, but Trump will still go ahead with a critical speech tomorrow afternoon, focusing on attempting to discredit his Democratic rival. In Washington, the Council on American Islamic Relations is condemning the attack, with leaders pledging their support to the LGBT community and even acknowledging how Virginians are especially sympathetic to those hurting right now.
For us in Virginia, this tragedy brings back horrible memories of the April 2007 Virginia Tech shooting that killed 32 people in Virginia Tech.
And to those politicians who may try to exploit this tragedy, we ask them to respect the victims and their families. This is not the time to score points. This is not the time to exploit fear. This is the time for unity and faith.
And there are countless stories from those who survived the horror and made it out of the nightclub. Our sister station spoke with one man who describes his own escape.
Heard the initial 3 shots, didn't see anything, didn't see flashes, didn't see a face. So we thought maybe, there was some sound issues with the music. Someone has a gun. Then we heard some more gunshots. And that's when we heard people say, "Run." So I hopped the fence and ducked behind a car. I hid there for about a good 2 to 5 minutes, which seemed like forever.
And you all have likely seen these pictures all over social media, with huge crowds flooding blood banks to donate what they can to help. And of course, so many of you have asked how we can help here in Richmond. Well, we reached out to the Red Cross, and Orlando thankfully has all the blood donations it needs at the moment. A spokesperson for the Virginia Red Cross said we can all help by replenishing the blood supply here at home in case the supply does drop in Florida. O negative, O positive, and AB plasma, the universal blood types typically used when treating trauma patients, are needed.
A community who knows all too well the pain of the people in Orlando. Friday marks 1 year since the deadly mass shooting in Charleston. These colorful paper cranes were sent to the Circular Congregational Church by another city that had suffered a massacre. On Facebook tonight, this church posted plans to pass them on to Orlando. So many of you have been sharing your thoughts and prayers over on the NBC 12 Facebook page. We've also set up a special tributes page if you'd like to leave a message for the family suffering tonight. Just go to nbc12.tributes.com.
And we know that many of you may be planning vacations to Orlando or have friends or family already there tonight. So some people took to social media to report longer lines at the theme parks today. Now, we've done some digging and learned there are increased security measures at Disney World and other Orlando tourist spots. In fact, Disney, Universal Orlando, and SeaWorld all added metal detectors after the San Bernardino mass shooting in December. There's a state of emergency in place in Orlando tonight with added security at Orlando International Airport as well.
A heavily armed man, apparently headed to the Pride Festival in Los Angeles, is also in custody tonight. And while authorities do not suspect this is connected to the attack in Orlando, they say a man was found with multiple weapons in his car. That includes at least one assault rifle and tannerite, which can be used to make a pipe bomb. We'll keep you posted on this investigation as it unfolds.
Today, we saw President Obama address the nation for the 15th time since taking office, assuming the role of comforter-in-chief after what's now become the worst mass shooting in American history. The massacres marring our communities have changed over nearly 2 decades as motives and profiles evolved. But the victims, all Americans, and their stories of survival and senseless murder remain. It quickly became a tragedy without measure, a massacre in Orlando. Seemingly the crescendo of mass shootings, gunfire gutting the country. It was an era seemingly ushered in by Columbine, amplified by Virginia Tech. What was, until now, the worst mass shooting the country has ever known. Virginia Tech saw a new role for survivors, turning into advocates.
To see such violence continually occurring in this country and no action being taken on the federal level is frankly irresponsible and unacceptable.
Colin Goddard was shot and survived. But while the shootings continued, the profiles and motives of the gunman changed. The Virginia Tech shooter considered a loner, vilifying society. The gunman who killed 6 students at the University of Santa Barbara, fitting a similar profile. Questions of mental instability entered the conversation in 2012 with the massacre in Aurora, and then the teachers and children killed in Sandy Hook.
It is a moral obligation of our society to stop the gun violence that is killing our children.
Mothers like Lori Haas have come to Richmond for years, fighting for the far prospects of banning assault rifles. But a major compromise this spring, with Virginia taking away all firearms from people kept far from others by protective orders.
I believe this sends a clear message that there's a mutual willingness that we have to keep our communities safe and to protect victims of domestic violence.
But from people's homes to houses of worship, racism, the suspected motive in Charleston. And now, within the past 6 months on both coasts, gunmen with suspected allegiance to ISIS. Protecting lives and protecting the Second Amendment, now a critical balance for the country, as activists continue to press Congress, convinced the shootings are far from over.
We want to make as much progress as we can, but we realize this is a marathon. This is a big cultural change we have to bring about in this country.
As our hearts go out to everybody impacted by this horrific tragedy, we want you to know our commitment to keeping you updated is unwavering. We'll be providing constant updates on air, online, and on social media. You'll also find any overnight developments beginning at 4:30 a.m. on 12 News Today and beginning at 7 a.m. during a special edition of the Today Show.
Well, we have much more news to get to tonight, but we want to take a moment and reset and bring you a check of the weather.
For that, let's shift things over to meteorologist Ross Runner. He's standing by in the First Alert Weather Center. Hey, Ross.
Hey there, Mike and Brittany. Yes, indeed. What a hot day out there today. We had 94 was our high at the Richmond Airport. Definitely the hottest day of the year so far, 74. That's been as cool as we have been all day today. That's where we stand right now at Richmond International. Northerly breeze at 7 miles an hour. We had a cold front pass earlier this evening, and what a sharp drop in these dew points. Relative humidity is definitely feeling much more comfortable around the region tonight. Our Elephant Insurance WeatherNet site here at Channel 12 on Richmond South Side, 76 degrees. Our high was 94 this afternoon. Regional temperatures fairly uniform in the middle and upper 70s. Still 81 degrees in Norfolk, but everywhere everybody's going to be cooling down nicely through the overnight hours as we have mainly clear skies now. There were a few isolated showers and thunderstorms late this afternoon, and some of those actually packed quite a punch with some gusty winds and some brief heavy rain, while the front responsible for those is pushing to the south. And it's turning cooler, of course, but more importantly, just a sharp drop in these dew point temperatures. So much drier air is building south, and it is going to feel refreshing, I think, early tomorrow morning as you head off to work and to school as well. Wake up weather forecast looking for plenty of sunshine. Temperature will settle down to right around 60 degrees here in Richmond. There'll probably be some 50s in the outlying areas. Lots of sun throughout the day. A really pleasant day around the region. 75 degrees at the noon hour. We'll end up around 82 for the afternoon high. Hour-by-hour forecast shows high pressure building in. So just a really nice looking Monday. Sunshine, low humidity, cooler temperatures. I do think we will warm up a little bit into the day Tuesday, although we'll start out cool again in the lower 60s. Highs in the upper 80s in the afternoon, and you see some rain off to the west of us, some showers and some thunderstorms breaking out. Looks like Tuesday afternoon and evening to our west, and I think our chances will be going up into the day. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to have opportunities for scattered showers and thunderstorms out there, and temperatures will be warming up again as well. Upper 80s Tuesday, near 90 on Wednesday. We'll be pretty close to 90, I think, on Thursday, and then a little bit cooler Friday. Next weekend does look cooler. Highs near 80 degrees, running below average for the middle of June. Saturday looks dry. Sunday, a bit of a question mark. We'll have to watch an area of low pressure offshore. That may bring us some rain for the second half of the weekend, but I think overall it looks pretty good. We'll have more 12 News for you coming up right after this.
Developing now, 12 people are forced to find another place to stay after the South Richmond home goes up in flames. This is what our cameras captured at the scene off Blandy Avenue at about 2 o'clock this morning. It took firefighters about 30 minutes to get the fire under control. No word yet on a cause, but fortunately it doesn't appear anyone was hurt.
At about the same time, Richmond firefighters helped evacuate people living in the River Towers apartment complex right off of Riverside Drive. Apparently, a mattress caught on fire, and again, no word on how this fire was sparked. But the good news here, no injuries to report either.
Tomorrow, a Chester woman killed in a tragic accident at Virginia Beach will be laid to rest. Lodi Belk's visitation begins at noon at First Baptist Church Centralia. Her funeral will immediately follow at 2 p.m. Belk was in Virginia Beach with family members when a wind gust lifted a nearby umbrella, which struck her in the chest. She died a short time later. We still have much more ahead here on 12 News.
We're coming right back with Matt Estrich, who has sports. Stay with us.
The Jeff McDonald Sports Desk is sponsored by Jeff McDonald Injury Lawyers. Don't wait. Call 8.
If the chase started today, Joey Logano would be in the playoffs on points. Incredibly, he doesn't have a win this year. 9 drivers have already won this season. They're in the chase. Joey Logano trying to join their ranks today at Michigan. Now, before today's race, a moment of silence honoring those killed this morning in Orlando. Some heavy hitters had a rough day. Lap 54, 3-time winner Kyle Busch's car is smoking on the track. In fact, it's on fire. The engine blew. Busch finished last, 40th place. Just 8 laps after that, Dale Jr. getting into some trouble here. He hits the wall. That would end his day as Jr. finished second to last, 39th. Lap 162, Jimmy Johnson, a contender for most of the day. Here he hits the wall, costing him precious track position. Johnson would finish 16th. How about Denny Hamlin? Said he had a top 3 car. Instead, with 12 laps to go, he blows a tire. Heavy damage there to the front end of the number 11. 33rd place finish for Denny. 7 laps to go. Joey Logano battling Chase Elliott for the lead. Logano surges in front. He led a race-high 138 laps today, and from there, Joey Logano cruising to his first official win of the year. He's the 10th different winner so far this season.
When you lead that many laps, it's more of a relief when you win than anything, because you feel like you're supposed to when you have a car that good. So it felt really good to pull our car into victory lane, get that win. You know, I consider it our second winner of the season. I know you guys don't, but we've celebrated twice this year. So it's nice to be able to know that we're locked into the chase, and we can race even harder than we do now.
And finally, you just saw it here on NBC 12. The Pittsburgh Penguins are Stanley Cup champs. Game tied at 1 in the second until the Pens' Chris Letang Tallying the go-ahead goal was Pittsburgh would add an empty netter. They win it 3-1. Sidney Crosby, your MVP. That's Conn Smythe. It's the Penguins' 4th Stanley Cup in franchise history. That's going to do for sports. We're back right after this.
And welcome back. We just want to update you briefly on the victims of the terror attack in Orlando. Of course, there are 50 people who have been shot dead at the Pulse nightclub. The city of Orlando has set up a website because there are so many victims to name the dead after their families have been notified. So far, we have 8 victims whose names have been listed after the terror attack. The youngest person killed listed so far, only 20 years old. The oldest, 37 years old tonight.
And we'll be following this story throughout the week and keep you updated along the way. And that coverage will begin at 4:30. But for now, that does it for us on NBC 12 News at 11.